Healing with crystals is an ancient practice. Yet did you know that the essence of gemstones can be used in homeopathy? Spiritual awakening, self-awareness, and intuition are some of the gifts that gemstone remedies can bring to your life. Homeopath, teacher, and author Giovanna Franklin will show you a different perspective on the healing properties of these magical gemstones. Join us in Gemstones and Crystals in Homeopathy and discover the power of gemstone remedies.
Hi, welcome to Gemstones and Crystals in Homeopathy. My name is Giovanna Franklin, and today we are going to talk about Moldavite. And because we're going to talk about Moldavite, I am really excited and honored to have a guest who knows quite a lot about Moldavite. And so without further ado, let's call in Mark Bajerski. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me on. Thank you so much.
Right. So before we dive in, I wanted to explain to Mark and to the audience why I invited him. So yes, he is an international crystal healer and is an expert in Moldavite. And that's part of the reason why I invited him here. About 3 years ago, I came across his YouTube channel, which is also called Mark Bajerski, and I started to follow his videos about different crystals, but particularly about Moldavite. And I followed him for about a year, and I became more and more engrossed. And first of all, I had never heard of Moldavite. I didn't know what it was, I have to admit. It was fascinating, but also to me, what really struck me was the depth of knowledge and the passion, the love that came through about these crystals. Now, I'm a homeopath, that's my background. But my followers know that I've always had a particular relationship, let's say, with crystals and gemstones since I was a child. By the time I found Mark Bajerski, I had already published my book about gemstones in homeopathy. But because of his videos, I decided to do a proving of Moldavite, and I organized a group proving, and we did that. It was an incredible experience. And so that's the real reason. So I wanted to thank you for all the work that you do, for inspiring me to do this work, to learn something more about this crystal. So that said, the questions, I have just 3 simple questions for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, how you met Moldavite, and how you work with Moldavite. How does that help your healing practice?
Well, I've now retired, so I don't do the work anymore on one-to-one. But when I was a full-time healer, I started getting involved with crystals out of I guess synchronicity of clients giving me certain crystals after a healing session. If I would say no charge, this is from my heart, no charge, they would want to give me something in return. So I ended up receiving crystals. And the first crystal I ever received, I for some reason had it in my pocket, and I started taking it out and for some reason laying it on top of the client without even thinking. And I'd do the healing session and I put the crystal back in my pocket. And this was right at the very beginning, right at the start. And within a couple of weeks, I'd use this crystal every day on different clients. And I had a phone call. A lady called me up, was a client. She wanted to meet. She was not feeling well. And I went to meet her in the village where I live in Spain, Andalusia. And we went for a coffee and we were sat down on low seats. And for some reason, I took my crystal out of my pocket and put it on the table as I was speaking to her. And she had a little girl with her at the time. And the little girl flew around the table, saw the crystal and didn't let it go. And of course, she could have the crystal. She took it and she wasn't let it go of it. We had our conversation and they left. And a week or two later, my friend, who was a client and a friend, said, "You're not going to believe this." And I said, "What?" I always get panicking when somebody rings. I hope everything's okay. No. She said, "My daughter," she never told me this. Her daughter had suffered being bullied at school. Also, she was struggling with night terrors. So at a certain time of night, she'd jump out of bed screaming. And she said, "Mark, this is the truth. Since seeing you, my daughter has slept through the night and all the bullying stopped." And I'm like, "But your daughter didn't see me. I didn't give her a healing set." I was confused. She says, "No, the crystal that you gave her, she's never let it go. It's with her when she sleeps. It's with her all the time. When she comes home, she needs it, she holds it." And so my mind at that time was, well, hands-on healing, energy healing is really what heals people. So this doesn't make any sense. I had no understanding of crystals at all. So I said, "Well, did you do anything different these days since I've met you?" "No." "Has your daughter eaten anything differently? Have you changed the food? Have you introduced any meditation? Have you done anything at all that's been different since the day you saw me till now?" She says, "Mark, my days are exactly the same. Nothing has changed. The only thing I can put it down to is this crystal." Well, I hear lots of things every day. And at that time, I was hearing lots of amazing things that were happening to people. So I didn't really put it into context until I started meditating on it. And here's where it got interesting. I was meditating, and all of a sudden, one of my clients that previous week who came to me was suffering night terrors. And then another girl a few days earlier suffered night terrors. And I was trying to recall, and then all of a sudden it was like a penny drop moment. I'd taken that crystal out and used it predominantly on those who told me afterwards that they had trouble sleeping, night terrors, and having trouble with people being nasty to them. Then I got really excited and I thought, okay, there could be something in this. And that's when my crystal journey started to becoming from airy fairy to very serious. And is it possible that when you give healing to a client, the energy that is given to you as a channel, could it have a residue or a memory that goes into the crystal as you are healing your client with the crystal on your client or in their hand? And to this day, I can honestly say, without a shadow of a doubt, that crystals have a unique ability to absorb positive healing energy.
Yes. There's another. It's not a crystal healer per se. He's more of a angel whisperer. Let's say he calls himself an angel whisperer, and he said once about crystals that crystals take the hit for us. And I really like that expression because it really, it feels true. They protect us. They absorb the negative.
Yeah.
And give us the positive.
Protecting is a really interesting word because we use it so often. But what does that actually really mean? What does it mean when a crystal protects you? My understanding, when you go deeper, is that the crystal, like tuning forks, like music, all has certain frequency. And that frequency that the crystal gives off is a frequency that can heal a certain aspect of your emotional and physical and spiritual. Therefore, we can call every crystal a healing crystal. We can call them a crystal of protection, a cleansing crystal. We can call them anything in the way of psychic attunement. But I believe each crystal is unique to your frequency, and they have this ability to send a frequency to a certain place that is in need of healing and balancing. So they are our balancer, they are our healer. And that's how I see crystals.
Yes. So do you think that each person has a frequency? So there has to be like a frequency match between the person and the crystal for the crystal?
No, I don't think it's the frequency match per se. I've often thought about this because why is it that if I hold a crystal now and I feel that crystal, it will work on a certain part of my body to heal my body. If I give it to you, it'll work on a different part of your body. I guarantee you that. So how does it know to work on your body differently from mine? It means that it's attuned to certain frequencies in your body and vibrations. And I think they target predominantly the low energy to clear lower energy. So it kind of disperses low energy. Now, not every crystal, some crystals target places where they are opening and awakening you, but predominantly a crystal for me isn't a crystal of protection, even though we say it, because every crystal in theory is a crystal of protection, because every crystal targets something in a positive manner that helps us become stronger. So we interpret that, oh, it's a protector, but actually it's a strengthener. It's a blaster of positive energy in so many ways. That's how I see it anyway.
Right. Yes. Okay. That's really interesting. And do you think that Moldavite is a difficult crystal to wear? I heard about this. I read about the Moldavite flush. It can be a bit too strong for some people.
Yeah. No, I don't see it as negative. I don't see it as difficult. All I see is that we are kind of just scratching the surface of understanding crystals. And you might say, oh, well, that means that they're a little bit dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And really, what you're saying is that you need to be educated before you touch it, because things can happen. However, ultimately, whatever happens with Moldavite, it brings out the best in you. After it brings out the trauma, the weaknesses, the worries, the fears, the trapped blocks. So ultimately, whatever happens with Moldavite, if you keep it on and keep working with it, eventually it will be nothing but positive in your life. So I've never had a client who's worn a Moldavite or had a Moldavite healing session afterwards and say in the near future, you know what, that was the best, that was the worst thing, and I'll never do it again. What they normally say is, wow, that was heavy, that was difficult, but they knew deep down that there was something happening on a different level. Many people are frightened of anything that is different. Many people are frightened of something that they don't know. So they use that, and then they say that to people, saying this is dangerous. Well, it's only dangerous if you don't know what you're doing with it. If you listen to people who talk about Moldavite, people talk about, yes, the Moldavite flush, talk about elevating energy. They talk about awakening energy, the connection to many different realms, extraterrestrial, the higher connection to so many spiritual things that we do. So, there's bound to be, it's like anything in life. You're always going to get people saying something negative, even about the word love. So, Moldavite has had a bad run for its money. I think there's a lot of people who have jumped on the bandwagon and just repeated other people's stuff. And I've studied Moldavite a long time, 20 years. I've worked with clients for 20 years. Moldavite's always been on my healing table with all my shamanic tools. I've used it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. If I thought for one moment that any crystal was dangerous, I'd be the first one to tell you. I'd be the first one to say, this is dangerous, don't go near it. All I've ever seen is a positive outcome where the client becomes even more awakened, more aware, more stronger, more powerful, more in tune with themselves. Nothing but positivity. But like anything, if you cut yourself and you're mucky, that cut is mucky, How do you clean that cut? You get maybe some 100% alcohol, and you'll rub it on the wound and it'll burn. But you know that burn hurts, but it's a good burn because you know it's killing all the nastiness that's inside there.
Yeah.
Moldavite is the same energy. At first, it feels like it's burning and this is painful, and all my emotions. And yeah, I cried for an hour on a train when I held a Moldavite. But I knew that wasn't like I was working with the Ouija board or dark entities or dark energies. It's a different feeling. But again, it's a personal thing. And I can't say to somebody, oh, you're silly, don't say that. What I can see, what I have seen very clearly, is many young girls and boys talk about Moldavite and they're crying on the set saying everything went wrong. Now look at them in 3 weeks later or 6 weeks later or a year later. They're the same person. They're still crying, but about something else.
Yes.
It had nothing to do with the Moldavite. I make sure, because I'm going to see if this is real, I'm going to make sure. So I followed 5 girls who talked about it. Funny how they all talked about it at the same time. That's kind of funny, eh? How come you're all talking about it at the same time? You all know each other, or you're all interlinked on TikTok or wherever it is. So I followed them and watched them. And a few weeks later, they're doing it again. A month later, they're doing it again, but with something else, not with a crystal, but with a boyfriend or blame. So I understand life. I understand how people are. But Moldavite is nothing but pure, amazing, miraculous energy that I believe in, and I've handled thousands of pieces, and I love it to this day, and I wear it almost every day.
Yes. Yeah. So you might almost think that sometimes you can get like a healing crisis, like if you have something that you need to purge, some emotional, some trauma that will come out, and it will be uncomfortable. But after that, that's the release, and that's the purification, and that's the benefit. Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting. It's funny that you mentioned the burning when you have like a wound or a cut, the burning, because in homeopathy, Moldavite is used for burns, for like burns from chemotherapy and things like that. So that's
very interesting. Yeah, I used to work with Moldavite with about 100 people who were going through chemotherapy, and there was a pattern of the pain being almost unbearable with my clients who were going through chemo or radiotherapy. They would talk about the burning, and almost to the point that they struggled with the healing session. So that's interesting. And a lot to do with their eyes and their brain and so on. Yeah, very interesting, actually.
And do you think that the burning thing, because when we did the proving homeopathically of Moldavite, and by the way, I'm wearing your Moldavite because, of course, after watching all your videos, I had to get a piece.
Thank you.
And I had to get a piece where I knew that the Moldavite was genuine. And so, by the way, if anybody's listening, if you want genuine Moldavite, you need a good source, Bajerski.com, good source. But anyway, we did the proving, and one of the first symptoms that I felt personally, and then other people in the group separately felt the same. My feet, the soles of my feet were burning.
Yeah, that's very normal. That's very normal. But also that energetic frequency that you are feeling, if you don't cleanse yourself and don't clear yourself properly and sufficiently, can carry on through 12 hours, and you might not be able to sleep on a night too. So
I couldn't sleep. Yeah,
right. It's vital as a pure energy healer instructor, as I am. I teach the most important thing is to cleanse yourself after every healing session. And how do I know that? Well, I learned through shamans. I learned through experience. There's nothing worse than becoming a healer and finding out you've got this heat burning source, your hands on fire all night. All of these things are very normal when you are a practicing healer of any modality. And the most important thing is to cleanse yourself. And the best way to do that and the cheapest way is find a tree and make an agreement with that tree. As shamans do, there's no reason why us in the West can't do the same. We find a tree, we say to the tree, we speak to the tree, I am now healing humanity. Would you please heal me? You make a bond between each other. It's an agreement, which shamans do. And sometimes the tree dies, but it dies for the reason of healing you. So if you ever knew me in this village, you'd know at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, I'd walk my two schnauzers and I'd go to the very end of this village, sit down next to a 500-year beautiful tree, which was an old olive tree, sit next to it. My dogs would sit down next to me. I'd put the leads on my ankles so that they wouldn't go, and I'd take both hands, put them behind my back, and just breathe in through my nose and blow out through my mouth, and feel the energy of the residue of what we've just been working on with our clients rush through our hands, and the tree absorbs us. And even if you don't have an agreement with a tree, even if you're not a healer, sit by a tree. You'll be surprised how it rebalances you and gives you great ideas. And the trees are our greatest of wisdom.
That's beautiful, actually. That's really, really beautiful.
Yeah,
absolutely. And do you think that the burning, going back to the burning, do you think it might be because of the origin of Moldavite, of how Moldavite actually is created, like this burn and this meteoric origin?
There's something very unique about Moldavite with the energy frequency, which is not of this world. All over the crystals, even Tactite, even though it's not of this world, doesn't have that same frequency. Tactite, which is this here, which is the darker one from anywhere from Thailand or Vietnam, you find that this particular crystal is an absorber of negative energy. There's another Tactite, which is the Libyan desert glass. I found a very interesting crystal, but none of them vibrate at the same frequency of Moldavite. And, having worked with Moldavite and sat with it and meditated and listened to my clients after healing sessions over the 20 years that I've worked with it, I'm actually I should be finishing my book called The Power of Moldavite, but in there I'll just give you an idea of what I believe Moldavite is, why it's different from other tektites. I believe Moldavite is a residue of a once planet that was high in frequency and that had beautiful extraterrestrials that could communicate with one another. It was energy frequency in the sense of they could levitate. They moved freely in levitation. They spoke to each other via telepathy. And it was a planet of love and healing, of great love and joy. And something happened. The planet imploded, exploded, whatever. And those fragments traveled through the universe. And we were lucky enough to have some of them fragments. Now, why do I say that? Why don't I believe it's some people talk to me when I mention this. Some people said, oh, people believe it was a starship that exploded. I have no idea about that. But what I can say is that every time I used to meditate with this crystal, every now and again, I used to see glimpses of another world, and my clients would confirm this with me. Clients would confirm what these beings looked like and that they floated and that we were on what looked like another world. They talked about colors that could not be seen. They talked about the waters which were not the color of what we would see it. They talked about other worlds, moons close by, not moons, but planets, and so on and so on. And this connection. So all of these things led me to believe that we are tapping into a memory of what this planet was within Moldavite, a fraction of what that planet was. And that would be my interpretation. And I am not disrespecting anybody who says that it was a starship. It could be. I could completely be wrong. But I am speaking from experience through working with Moldavite for 20 years with clients, and I'm talking thousands. So this isn't just plucked out of thin air of 1 or 2 or 20 meditations. This is 20 years of meditation. I meditate every day. So it comes from what I believe a long time to make the decision of what I've come to. So that's my truth. But again, hey, I could be wrong.
That is incredibly fascinating, because when we did the group proving, part of the proving process in homeopathy is the meditation process. Right. And what happened was that a few people from the group, most of the people in the group, they meditated separately with the Moldavite, and they had the same visions, and they were talking about memories of another world. Some were talking about memories of Lemuria, or anyway, other worlds not from the earth. And this water came up as well. And the amazing thing is that in these provings, very often everybody has the same visions. Even when done separately, then we all get together again and we compare and we share what we felt. So, and this resonates with what you just said. So it's amazing. It's
I mean, it's not something, like our field of work is so ridiculed and so dissed in the world of science, and people who claim to be of science mind, and it really is very hard for this kind of work to be accepted and understood, because the ridicule of what's called our imagination is a tut. No, it's just your imagination. Whereas the imagination is the absolute key that gets us into unlocking the worlds that most people don't ever see. It was deliberately hijacked by those who knew exactly how to attune to higher frequencies, knew how to control the masses. This was all planned. So anything, and I've got a really good story here. When I was, I go to Czech Republic to buy my Moldavite. Okay, so the last time. I won't say the last time I was there, because people are going to question why and all the other stuff. But I go there often, and I don't tell people because of what we've been through these 3 years. Okay, so while I was there, the story of a farmer who I met, and we sat in a place called it wasn't Maliklum, it was Besanice. So I was in Besanice, and I was outside the bus stop. There's only one big bus stop, and there's a big sign saying Besanice. So I'm out there, and this young lad walked past. Anyway, the story goes, better just tell you the story. Many years ago, there was a kind of a Cold War, some kind of war between Czech Republic and Russia, and there was all sorts of stuff happening many years ago. Anyway, there was an agreement with Russia and Besanice, and that is to take the Moldavite from certain fields, load it up and take it away. And what they would do is provide money to that community. Now, question is, why would the Russian military come and take Moldavite in their truckload? Why would they even bother taking Moldavite away? And apparently it was truck after truck after truck after truck, digging, but using big machinery, going through field after field after field, taking literally hundreds of tons of muck with Moldavite. Okay, so why would they do that? There's only one real explanation. It's not because it's a nice crystal. It's because there is something unique and powerful about the crystal. And it wouldn't shock me if there are secret documentations that Russia had some kind of secret, I don't know, kind of work where they were testing certain crystals or certain things on a level of that kind of spiritual aspect, because in the world, I mean, the normal human being mocks and laughs crystals, but yet the higher you go in terms of genius, in terms of wealth, in terms of power, why is it that the kings and queens only had the most powerful crystals? And I'll tell you this, Moldavite was on many different rare artifacts of nobles and royalty, and also of those that worked in the occult.
Wow. I didn't know that. Wow.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you look and dig deep and do your research, you'll find that Moldavite was on a lot of objets d'art that was talismans, which were the key to connect to afterlife, to other dimensions and other worlds. And I think, like anything, if you are a good soul and your intention is pure, Moldavite will give you that pureness, will give you that what you seek in a loving and a loving way. If your intention is dark, if your intention is cruel, I think that you could tap into something, quite possibly because of your own frequency, which the Moldavite will enhance your frequency, because it does. It enhances your frequency to another frequency. But the residue of that is you see and feel things from the Moldavite. But I think it's definitely an amplifier. And I think Russian military, the industrial complex, tested it, and I think they use it. And I think maybe they didn't know how to use it. They never quite really understood it, because I've spent 20 years with it and I still don't understand it. I still don't get it. I'm still bewildered by it and fascinated by it to this day. And I work on thousands upon thousands of pieces, and not by just digging them and holding them, by working with their frequency, by working with energy with them. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. That is absolutely mind-blowing. And I think it's a good time to have a short break and then come back.
OMTimes TV. In my book, Gifts from the Earth, I illustrate the healing properties of 12 gemstone remedies. You will see real case studies from my practice and dive into the wonderful world of gemstone remedies. This is a clear and practical guide on how to use gemstones in homeopathy. Whether you are an experienced practitioner or beginner, you will find this book a fascinating read. Gifts from the Earth is available on Amazon. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. OMTimes Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, OMTimes offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an OMTimes magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on OMTimes TV and broadcasting it across the extensive OMTimes radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. OMTimes. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
And we're back with Mark Bajerski, who just blew my mind there with the with this amazing revelation. But I totally believe that because, one of the people that I have been following is an Italian astrophysicist. Her name is Giuliana Conforto, and she is she totally talks about the power of crystals, and in fact, the heart of the earth is a giant crystal, and apparently, this has been known since 1936, apparently, but they don't really tell you that at school. And when you think that, our pineal gland is covered in teeny tiny little crystals. And she also talks about meditation and the fact that we only use the outer part, the gray part of our brain, and 70%, which is the rest basically inside, is completely untapped. When you learn to tap into that, you can time travel, you can see the future, you understand that there is no time, is just a construct, and all this stuff that is all kind of woo-woo. It's and just saying that, it's all in your imagination. Well, we create reality with our imagination. So
right.
It is our imagination, and that's very, very powerful. So but I think the good news is that I feel very strongly about this, that because of quantum physics, we are starting to understand, or at least ask the questions, and we're starting to accept what until now has been, considered, homeopathy is still derided, and, people are like, oh, yeah, it's just, you're taking water, you're taking sugar pills and stuff. But because of science catching up with what our ancestors have known for thousands of years, now, they can talk about frequency medicine and, the healing properties of sound and music and vibrations and colors. So I think that we are slowly making progress. And that's also part of the reason why I'm doing this, because I think this awareness, this is the time. I think this is our time as healers.
Well, we're here for a reason, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Everything is our time, no matter if we're going through pain and suffering or joy and a breakthrough of seeing what we hope everybody else sees, but each to their own, really. I got to the point where I realized that, everybody's on their own journey. We can't force our work. We can't demand that our work be put onto the world, because then we'd be as bad as the pharmaceutical industry. So therefore, for me, it is what it is. We do what we do, and we do our best. And if people are ready and willing and non-forced, non-evasive practices, then I think, I think it's a good thing. I think it's positive. But I think we touch people's lives in so many ways, not just with crystals, with words, with a touch. I think we touch people's lives in ways that we don't even realize. And I think as long as we focus on healing ourselves and strengthening ourselves, then we create, like the crystal, an energetic frequency, which is so powerful that the reason why I say the number one crystal in the world is you, because you are water, you are crystal, you vibrate at such a high frequency that there's no crystal more powerful than you. And if you put a crystal more powerful than you, then you've got it wrong. So when you vibrate at a high frequency, you change the world in a ripple effect that you could never possibly know. And that is a beautiful thing. So each time you heal yourself, each time you clear trauma, each time you get over something that upsets you and makes you sad, each time you grow stronger and find that you and you alone have the power and no one has the power over me, when you keep repeating that and becoming stronger and not allowing people to imprison you in your fear of what they think of you, you become a lighthouse for the world. And becoming a lighthouse is the most beautiful thing, that on the moment that you move from this world into our home world, you realize that you did the right thing, and what you did was exactly what you came to do: shine your light.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and it's really beautiful. So how do we find good Moldavite? Where does it live?
Well, a good Moldavite for me, it's a very personal thing because I've got friends who are healers who like Moldavite from different parts of the Czech Republic. They like the different colors, the darker ones, the denser ones. There's so many different types of Moldavite. But for me, I've always been drawn to Besanice. I love Besanice. They call it the hedgehog. It's and when you go a little bit deeper, it's the hedgehog, which is the chime. So if you can get a chime hedgehog, then those were 20 years ago used to be a few $100. Now they're a few $1,000. So everything's increased in value. Why do I like the hedgehog? The hedgehog has a unique energy that if you just take normal crystal cluster, they have the little pointers everywhere. Well, I noticed that when you work as a healer with these pointers, that they create the same energetic frequency where you're holding your hand and doing healing work with your hand. So the energy pours through into this point. So I started using pointers on clients, and I found that it helped heal their eyes. It helped heal skin cancer. And so the beauty about pointers, especially on the Moldavite, is that they have this tremendous frequency which is channeled into a very tiny kind of laser-like energy frequency. So when you are working on the third eye with a hedgehog full of pointers, it's mind-blowing. And then from there, I like Maliclum, and then I like Clum, and that's really where I stuck at. So I didn't really go down the path of all the other crystals from all the other meteorites from around the Czech Republic. So the only way you really know that you're getting a real authentic crystal if you don't work on energy. And I don't talk about this too much because I think it's important that when people are buying a crystal, they buy when they buy a Moldavite, they should buy direct from source. And you need to know 100% that who you're buying from isn't scamming you, because the problem that I found many years ago is that the Moldavite supply was getting more difficult because there were so many people wanting to buy it, which means that I remember going to a trade show, and there was one man there who I used to buy Moldavite from because he used to dig as a child, and he grew up digging Moldavite. So I knew all the Moldavite was genuine, and it was. I'd seen cleaning them because they sometimes come out really dirty, and you've got to brush them hard and then work on them a bit, so on. So I don't know why this happened, but it did. I witnessed a man sitting down at the cafeteria, and he had a black briefcase. And I'm sat very close. I've never told this story before because I never wanted to get people to get upset with me. So you're hearing something brand new here. So I'm sat down trying to eat this horrible food, which was disgusting. And I'm trying to pick at it, finding something to eat. And I'm excited because I'm going back to the Moldavite stand. And I'm looking, and am I seeing this right? He spins the case around to another man. The guy opens a case, and I'm looking, and I can see the case is full of Moldavite. It's full of Moldavite. And when I'm talking about a case, I mean bigger than you can imagine. And like, wow. And it wasn't a case where you lift it. It's where it's like a briefcase. No, it's a case that sits down and you lift it from the top. And so it was piled with Moldavite. And I'm like, am I seeing this right? And then there was money exchanged in an envelope, right? And then they went their separate way. So I went back and had a word with this guy, and he says, oh yeah, it happens all the time. So there's only a number of see, where I'm getting to is there's only a small number of mines. Okay, so the sand mines, and there's some people who dig here and there. The sand mines have already sold the Moldavite to private buyers, and unfortunately they're not of England or America so much, the more of China. So And the really sad part about all of this is that when I did more research over the years, I started looking at Chinese Moldavite, and I actually bought a piece about 3 years ago when I bought my my very high powered microscope, and I paid something like $1,100 for a Moldavite necklace. And I asked them, is this Moldavite from China? Is this Moldavite? They guaranteed it was Moldavite. So I bought it for two reasons. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to be sure, is this real, or is because people were saying to me, you can't keep going on about Chinese fake. They do buy it. And then I'm like, okay, well, they do buy it. So there must be some genuine Moldavite, and they do carve genuine Moldavite into different carvings, but I wanted to see for myself. So I took this piece and I looked under the microscope. For every single ball, there was 4 fake.
Oh.
1 genuine, 4 fake. Now I know why they buy Moldavite. So I have a lot of stories about Moldavite and how easily it is to be fooled. I bought off one man from the Czech Republic for a while. I asked him, one of my clients who were very wealthy, very famous, wanted 3 pieces. Was it 1? But then she ended up buying 3. Anyway, I decided to buy a piece off him because he said he'd got it was a 72 gram Moldavite from Maliclum. I said, wow. And so I paid a lot of money for it. And it came to me. And prior to that, I was getting Moldavite from him, which was beautiful. I paid a lot of money. Okay. But my client was going to buy it and pay a lot of money for it. And I was probably going to put on a 200 or 300 euros on top. And this is thousands of euros. So anyway, I bought it, and something didn't feel right. Energetically wise, it didn't feel right. It wasn't. And I'm like, is it me? Am I too excited? Because sometimes when you get so excited, you lose the feeling. That's why I say to people, don't get excited over Moldavite, because you might be deflated. And if you don't feel it, the excitement can ruin it. So I relaxed and left it a few days and a few more days. Anyway, I had it tested. I had it checked. It was fake. It was Chinese fake. I sent him a message and I said, I can't believe what you've done. And he blocked me. Never heard anything else from him ever again. Then I went on to my YouTube channel and said, look, guys, even if you buy from the Czech Republic, it's so easy for people to buy from China and buy a bucket load of glass and sell it to people with an authentic stamp of approval because I'm from the Czech Republic. So what I do now is I go to the Czech Republic and I handpick my pieces in front of the people that I know. And I won't do anything other than that to this day.
Yeah, that's why I bought my piece of Moldavite from you, because if you see, for those who don't have the video, it's kind of dark green, and it's really, I think it's really easy to make fakes, you know.
Oh yeah, very
because
easy.
It kind of looks like almost like bottle green, you know. They can give you a piece of glass, you know, and cut it in a funny way, and it can look like.
Well, they mold it in a funny way, and Yanni, one of the men that I know also that I sometimes visit in shows, I've got a little video of him on YouTube. If you go Mark Bajerski, Genuine Moldavite, you'll see it. I'm with Yanni, and he's one of, again, he was a young guy in his time, used to dig it and then sells it even to this day. His are all genuine. So he was telling me while I was there that he got asked to go to China to one of the laboratories and to check some of the fake Moldavite to see if he could tell the difference. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Can you imagine? So they must now have it sewn up so amazing that I think it's really hard for anybody to see. But if you are working with Moldavite and you are very, very in tune and you feel things, frequencies, if you feel energy, then there is a very big difference between glass, which is also Mother Earth being blown, but Moldavite is completely different frequency.
Yeah. And so it can only be found in Czechoslovakia, basically, in the Czech Republic, sorry.
Well, in my book, I believe it's somewhere else as well. I believe that the spurt didn't only just go in one direction, but many. And I write it in my book. One day when it comes out, there is a place where I also feel it's at, and the Mother Stone. I think the Mother Stone hasn't been found yet.
Wow. And how long ago do you think that happened? So what happened? So it was a meteorite, and how long ago do they think it was?
I have no idea. I haven't got a clue. I don't, I mean, there's discussion of 15 million years ago, but all I know is that the meteorite landed in Germany and fragmented in 2 different places in Germany. I've been to both locations. And from there it spurted out and landed in the Czech Republic. But, it's like anything else. When like, if you just try and think about this, if you get a stone and throw it into water at an angle, okay, if it's coming down, it didn't come straight down, it probably came down at an angle, right? If you throw a stone into the water, where do those ripples go? They don't all go forward, they go to the side, they go elsewhere. So for me, I had this strong feeling with meditation and with dreams that there is the Mother Stone elsewhere. Something, it spurted out and there's a huge piece somewhere else. Something, it wasn't just one place, it was 2 places. And I like, oh wow. I mean, I went on a travel to try and find the location. We were using maps, we were using diagrams, we were using rulers, trying to figure out, where it could be. And yeah, it's great. When the book comes out, I'm sure it's going to be fascinating for people to go on the search. But yeah, like anything else, depending on where the location is, where the Moldavite landed, depending on how the Mother Earth is, then Moldavite ends up different. It's different color, different shapes, different textures. So I believe Moldavite is somewhere else, but as well as where it's found. So I think that's fascinating too.
Yes, definitely. That's definitely fascinating. And sometimes in the meditation proving, sometimes there are elements, there are visions or elements that come in that belong to the country where that crystal or tektite came from. And so it would be interesting to see whether, if you find Moldavite in a different country, that will be different somehow, with different properties.
For me, I stuck with 2 crystals, Maliclum and Bessanitz. The reason why is because, sometimes when something isn't broken, you don't want to break it, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So I was getting so good results from my clients who didn't believe in anything. And after I placed the Moldavite on their 3rd eye, after 1 hour of healing, said they'd get up with no words, but their whole life had changed. A new outlook in life, a new person is in front of me now who kind of now cannot dispute what they've just been through. That used to fascinate me. I used to get so excited because I wanted to know, what was it that has now changed you from what you've just been through? But you can't say it's one thing. You can't say it's the visions. You can't say it's the energy. You can't say it's the feeling. It's all of everything that happens at once, which is a divine moment in somebody's life that cannot be denied and cannot be pushed aside. And it's there forevermore. And that's why I love Moldavite. It is the most fascinating crystal amongst thousands of crystals I've worked with. And I swear by it. I love it. And every time I hold a piece, I get so excited. And more so, I'm excited when somebody buys a piece and sends me a message, because I want to know, not about selling it, but what you felt.
Yes, exactly. No, and I love your passion, and it's amazing. It just comes through. So it's been really a pleasure. Really a pleasure.
It's gone by so
to
fast.
listen to do. And so I don't know if you will have time or notion to do this again. I mean, we could talk about Moldavite for decades. So
Yeah.
it's been fantastic. So Mark Bajerski, markbajerski.com if you want to visit his website. My website, it's homeopathyheal.co.uk, and the proving of Moldavite is on my Academy of Evolutionary Homeopathy. Thank you so much. It's been fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
This show is not intended to diagnose, prevent, or treat any diseases or illnesses. The information presented within cannot substitute the advice of your physician or other trained healthcare professionals. The content of this show is for educational purposes only and is the expressed opinion of the show host and guests.